Oh, hey everybody. Wow, I didn't realize you were back. I just wanted to see, how this stupid hat looked, if it was any different. I don't know if I can make this hat look any better, but again, the inclement weather, we got to do what we got to do. And so now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about teams. And you might be saying to yourself, well, we just talked about groups. What's the difference between groups and teams? We're going to talk about the difference between groups and teams. We're going to talk about different types of teams. And we're going to talk about how you can help an organization move from a sort of a group approach or individual approach to more of a team approach. And we talk a lot about teams today. It's kind of the hip thing to do, and everybody talks about their team. This is my team, go team. But the fact is, most organizations are really functioning as groups with a leader, a traditional top-down approach, but we like to use this idea of teams because we think it's cool and hip. So hopefully after this lesson, you'll have a better idea of what real teams are, and moreover, how you can help your organization move to more of a team approach. So hang on. All right, so let's talk about the definition of a team. A team can be defined as a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, a common performance goals, and an approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. And of course, there are required skills, technical and functional job skills, problem solving and decision making skills, and interpersonal skills in order to make a team work. And so if you look at Table 2, this gives you a good overview of the distinction between teams and traditional groups, traditional work groups. And so you'll see that a conventional work group has many narrow categories of work, while a team is based on one or two broad categories. So teams typically cover more area. The authority, and this is a big one here now, in a conventional work group, the authority is directly, the supervisor directly controls daily activities. So a group has a single supervisor. As we're a team, the team controls the daily activities. All right, so the leadership of the team, the management of the team is within the team itself. It could be an appointed leader, and initially we'll see that typically there's a stronger sense of leadership around a person. But as teams mature, that's not quite as necessary because the team is functioning around its ideals, its goals, right? Its mutually identified goals. And so people provide leadership as needed, right, when there's an area of expertise for them, but there's not just a single leader model in a team. It tends to be more of a mutual leadership. This is very different than traditional work groups, right? Traditional work groups always have like a supervisor and everybody goes to that person. So think about your org chart, right? Here's your work group, you have your supervisor, In a team, leadership tends to be more fluid, dynamic, depending on the situation and the context, who has expertise, right? And then the reward system is another difference between groups and teams. In a conventional work group, it depends on the type of job, individual performance, and seniority. As we're on a team, it's based on the team performance and individual breadth of skills. And so some organizations actually do rewards and bonuses for the team based on the overall team performance, not for just the individuals, right? So that makes a real strong incentive and commitment for people to make the team thing work. So a true team is something that is self-directing, self-managing, and autonomous, all right? Okay, so you might be saying, well, why should we even do teams if it's a lot of work? It seems kind of risky. Well, there's a lot of benefits to teams. And so some of these benefits are enhanced performance, the employee benefits, the reduced costs, and the organizational enhancements. And if you look at Table 10.2, you will see here the benefits explained more thoroughly here. The enhanced performance, it can result in go team. They just scored again. All right. That was weird, wasn't it? Okay. Increased productivity, improved quality, improved customer service. Employee benefits include quality of work life, lower stress. Reduced costs includes things like lower turnover and absenteeism, fewer injuries. And organizational enhancement include increased innovation and flexibility. And so people like to be part of a team. It helps to share the load. It helps to distribute the load. It brings a lot of creativity and innovation. And it's just an overall beneficial thing. Now, there are some costs. It does take time. It takes sort of a cultural shift, a mind shift for the organization to move to a team-based approach. but a lot of organizations, as you'll see in that table there, have really reaped long-term benefits from doing a team approach. We keep mentioning there are challenges to moving to a team-based approach. As much as we love the idea of teams, it's not easy moving an organization from a sort of a supervisor, top-down, individual-centric approach to more of a true team approach where there's mutual collaboration, mutual independence, rewards based on team performance. It's a difficult thing to do. And so some of these difficulties moving to a team-based organization include things like this: managerial role confusion, all right? So think about it. You're a traditional manager. You've been doing this sort of top-down thing. People report to you. You call the shots. All of a sudden, that's not the case anymore. And so you're still in a management position, but what you do is a lot different. It takes time for managers to adopt and adjust to that new role. Another difficulty is the employee resistance to role changes, right? So people don't want to change. They like what they've been doing. They don't want to have this mutual independence. They don't want to feel, kind of like this leaderless, who's in charge kind of thing. It's challenging moving in that direction. It can be a cumbersome and lengthy team development process. These things don't happen overnight, right? It's a repeated, ongoing training, development process. And then losses due to premature abandonment of the process. So some organizations actually say, okay, we're committed to moving to teams. They haven't really thought about it. They haven't really developed a strategy for moving to that approach. They get into it, and guess what? It's difficult, and they lose heart, and they abandon the whole approach, and they say, well, that didn't work. So much for the team approach. We're going back to the old-fashioned way. So that's a huge cost, especially for a larger corporation that's committed a lot of resources to doing that. All right. Now, there are lots of different types of teams. And if you look in your book, you'll see, looks like 6 different ones. Quality circles, work teams, problem-solving teams, management teams, product development teams, and virtual teams, which are almost like teams. They're virtually teams. No, actually, virtual teams have to do with people who meet over technologically mediated resources like the internet, right? All right. Now, a good part of the book now goes into this idea of how do we implement teams in organizations. So how do we move an organization from the traditional supervisor approach, work group approach, to more of a team-based approach? And so there's sort of a whole process here, and I don't think I'm really going to go through each of the steps in depth, but take a look at that, and I think there's a good graphic here, and let me give you the, here it is. Okay, it's figure 10.1. which talks about the phases of team implementation. And so let me just kind of quickly go over some of these for you. This might be helpful. All right, so the first phase, actually it's not even a phase, it's sort of even before you get to the phases, is the decision to move to a team-based approach. And the organization really has to be committed to this. They should really think about it. They should, even try to calculate the return on investment. This is going to cost us something to move to a team-based approach. What do we think in the long term is going to be the benefit in terms of productivity, quality, innovation, motivation, leadership development, reducing the cost, absenteeism, all those kinds of things. Try to figure out what that long-term benefit is before you make the decision, because if you're not clear, and this has to do with anything, I think, in organizational life, if you're not clear on why you're doing something, if you're not clear on what the goals are and what the benefits are, then when things get tough, and inevitably they will get tough, they always do, you're going to back out. And so you can't go half-heartedly into this team approach. You have to really go for it. And so the decision needs to be really based upon a well-thought-out, thorough strategy and an organizational commitment, a cultural commitment to move in this direction. So once you make the decision, you plan the implementation. How are we going to do this? How are we going to phase it in? Which groups are going to go first, etc. All right, so then you move into your 5 phases. There's the startup phase, reality unrest, leader-centered teams, tightly formed teams, and then self-managed teams. So let's break those down a little bit here. Phase 1 is that startup phase, right? Performance is normal. Things seem to be going well, right? Everybody's kind of happy. They're kind of saying, hey, cool, we're part of a team now, right? This is great. But then there's that phase 2, that reality and unrest, and performance declines due to confusion and frustration with training and lack of top management direction. All right, so this is sort of that, that second phase where you're over the honeymoon now, and everybody's just a little bit frustrated over roles, who's supposed to do what, and management's lack of commitment, those kinds of things. Then you move to phase 3, which is a leader-centered team, and so this is, okay, now we have to have a leader who leads us. We can't sort of be an adhocracy forever, right? So somebody takes control, and at this point performance increases due to the increasing familiarity with the team processes and restoration of internal leadership. Go team! They just scored again. Okay, and then phase 4 is the tightly formed team. In this phase, performance continues to increase, and then you move to that optimal phase, right? The self-managed team. It's not just about the one leader anymore, but everybody really is stepping into their role. They're performing, high performing, and things are going well. Performance peaks as team matures and becomes more flexible. You move to phase 3, which is a leader-centered team. And so this is, okay, now we have to have a leader who leads us. We can't sort of be an adhocracy forever, right? So somebody takes control, and at this point performance increases due to the increasing familiarity with the team processes and restoration of internal leadership. Go team! They just scored again. Okay, and then phase 4 is the tightly formed team. In this phase, performance continues to increase, and then you move to that optimal phase, right? The self-managed team. It's not just about the one leader anymore, but everybody really is stepping into their role. They're performing, high performing, and things are going well. Performance peaks as team matures and becomes more flexible. So if you look at figure 10.2, there's a nice little graphic here that shows you the performance and how it should improve over the implementation phase, over the implementation of teams. So when you start up, initially things are going to go good, but then there's going to be that decline in performance, sort of that unsettled, people are not sure how that's working, and so then it starts to move back up as you hit that leader-centered team approach, tightly formed teams, and then self-management team, right? So it's going to take time. I think that's the one thing you need to understand is that moving to a team-based approach has a lot of benefits, but it's going to take time. It's going to take commitment from all levels of the organization, especially the top levels, because again, you're going to have a lot of people that are skeptical about moving to this approach in the first place, right? And so you're going to have people that when performance starts declining, they're going to say, I told you this wasn't going to work. Let's go back to the traditional approach. And so you need to be committed. Top management needs to be committed to sticking it out and waiting for the benefits, because there will be long-term benefits. I believe in teams. I think they're a great thing. Those of us who've been part of them, I think can attest that they're a great thing. Well, that's about it for this week. Hopefully this was helpful for you to understand groups and teams as we broach this interpersonal dynamic in organizations. It's not just about individuals, but it's about individuals working together and accomplishing more together, right? So anyhow, blessings to you guys, and I'll see you online.